Welcome to our weekly Wednesday here at Gentian. It's a bright sunny day, which seems to change everybody's mood. That's kind of nice to see. A couple of things we'll do for beginning with housekeeping. I like to start obviously with going big and gratitude. And a lot of my gratitude lately has again been for my family and other pieces. Also my 92-year-old grandfather this Mother's Day, hopping on a Zoom call, which ended up being a Skype call because we couldn't get into Zoom, but being his tech guru, so it was kind of a fun thing that we did this weekend as well. It was also my mother-in-law's birthday, my wife's birthday this last week, so we had quite a few things going on, which was a lot of fun to us. So my gratitude, at least, is in that form big. Now, if you've got your gratitude journal, please take a few moments when we're done to write down what you're grateful for. More than anything, what people need right now is good news, gratitude, hope, and inspiration. And you can be the vessel for that. So just take a look at this as this gets kind of long in the tooth when it comes to this. But it's interesting to watch. We probably had 75, 80 different households watching when the market was really rough. I think last week we had 55 because we had really nice weather on a Wednesday. So I just want to make sure that these weekly Wednesdays are going to be beneficial for you. We're going to put them out because I know a lot of you will watch them later as well. But this might become something that was forced by this. I think it'll be a good piece, though, for us to have constant communication for you guys on what's on our mind, what we're doing, and maybe what we're thinking, which would be beneficial to many of you. So thank you for your feedback on that as well. Please feel free to email us and let us know your gratitude that you're grateful for, people we can pray for you as well and your family, anybody affected, any questions for kids and all. We've been working on all that. Zach's been working on a lot of those questions. I have. Ken has as well. So we just want to thank you for that as well. But we wanted to bring you back to your Gentian Gratitude Journal. That's one piece. Housekeeping, just to give you a little bit of an opening as well, is we hope you all had a nice Mother's Day. Mother's Day weekend was here. One thing that we all share is we all had mothers. So we wouldn't be here without them. And I think that's an important one. Matter of fact, Ken, how about you had a statement on Mother's Day.
Yeah, when you think about Mother's Day, my gratitude is I turned 40 yesterday, so a lot of you have noticed some gray hair in the beard and stuff like that. That's why I'm getting older. My daughter told me I need a cane and need to sit down because I might fall over.
That's funny.
But no, I want to say thank you for the clients that reached out. I got a few emails and a few birthday calls from some of you, so thank you for that. Steve and Barb, also Barb. Thank you very much for that. Also had some drive-bys with the family yesterday and some friends. Everybody dropped off a cake. It was really funny. So we ended up having 3 or 4 cakes yesterday. But I'm just very grateful for all of your love and support and also Mother's Day as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Kim. So a couple of things as well. We want to say thank you to our nurses. There's quite a few nurses in our client base as well, which in our family, we really want to say that we appreciate you. Nurses Week, I think, concluded on May 12th, but we want to make sure we included you in this thanks. What you're doing on the front lines is phenomenal. We appreciate that. We just want to make sure we notice and we have gratitude for you. A couple of housekeeping FYIs. These come from Ashley, so usually these are the portions that I would probably have forgotten to say, so she gives me a little bit of a piece to put in here for you. But remember, housekeeping, a couple of things we did. We did a CARES Act overview, so you would have gotten a piece that shows a little bit about the CARES Act. We get these expertise pieces, if you will, from Ed Slott, and we spent a couple of days the other week on that. But then what that does is it brings information to you. One of my clients recently took advantage of. So they took a distribution, not knowing about this coming up. This came up now, and they can now spread the taxes over 3 years on that distribution, which ended up being about $100,000. So it's a great piece because these laws are extremely confusing, even when you're in the know. But that's a good piece. You got the CARES Act overview, so if you don't have that, reach out to us. We can send you another copy of that piece as well. But we emailed that out last Tuesday. We also emailed some ways to express gratitude now for some of you. And again, we appreciate you getting all these. We get it. Normally, you'll see in corrections, we don't stand up and do a whole lot of stuff for this. But what we wanted to do is send you out pieces that you could consume at your own time. They might be beneficial, but the ways to express gratitude now are ways for you to be able to reach out to someone and lift their day. You can actually be the power to make somebody's day brighter. So we appreciate that one. We sent that one out as well last Friday. You also may have seen an email from Gentian about scheduling your next review with Zach. There's a Calendly link that you guys want to reach out to on that as well, if you're going to set up some time with Zach and his meetings. Also, you're going to see on Monday, you got the Nick Murray edition, which is the folly of waiting for the bottom. So Ken and I have had a ton of questions and conversations about this, probably too many just to go over in here. But this is a great piece that explains when you're looking for a bottom, other than by sheer accident, nobody catches the bottom. Not at least of all because we know it was the bottom until we're well past it. So there's no point where we go, oh, here's the bottom, better buy today. That bell doesn't ring. That notice doesn't come out. So you only know it when you've gotten far enough past. We remember days in February of 2009. We remember days, in 2001 or 2 when we hit the bottom early in February of 2003, simply because we can go back in history and point to them. That day we did not get a notice going, here's the bottom. But a lot of people, I'm going to sit this out and wait for the bottom. We could have a lower market. That's another question we're getting a lot too is, could the market go lower? There's nothing that says it couldn't. You might find that this week something else occurs that we're all surprised about and something goes lower. But secondly, you often find the market's looking well ahead of now to look at what's going on. So the market doesn't follow what's happening. The market leads what's happening oftentimes as well. So you got that Nick Murray edition. It's a great piece. Nick is a great friend of mine. He's a wonderful teacher. He's been in the business for 50 years. He's been a CFP, and he's really a great teacher that we follow as well. Another one, please. Save the date for the Gentian Women's Group Virtual Gathering. It'll be Friday, May 29th at 11 a.m. Central Daylight Time. Later this week, Ashley's going to send out an invitation for that as well. So please watch for that. I know those that participated last time really enjoyed it and are looking forward to the next one as well. We'll have some wonderful features and some breakout rooms as well. I like to always start with something funny. So one thing somebody's asked me about recently is, with all these people being confined at home, 9 months from now, what do you think is going to be the effect of it? Well, there's a chance that there's going to be a baby boom. That does often happen when people are confined in the homes. So that means in 2033, there's going to be a new generation, a new rise of this generation. And we're going to call them the quarantines. That's what we found out. So the quarantines is our new generation that's being born in 9 months. We thought that was an interesting one. Another one here. Now, you've seen a ton of business. Now, who here has seen, I think one of my neighbors might be the single person that's helping the economy most, as I see no less than 7 deliveries from FedEx, UPS, or the U.S. Postal Service every single day. So I congratulate him the other day, say, thank you for keeping the economy running. So you might want to do that to one of your friends, but what shows, you've seen Amazon have a huge jump in business. So I looked at an age-old question, and I really wanted an answer to it, so I figured this is an opportunity. So I just ordered a chicken and an egg. I'll let you know. So the one thing you'll find as well, we've had a lot more conversations with my wife and myself. We've really had some great deep conversations. And she told me I have 2 faults. The first one is I don't listen, and then something else. So at any rate, I thought that was pretty important.
Well, it's funny you say that because we're talking about some wife jokes right now. That I told my wife to embrace her mistakes, and then she gave me a hug.
That's good. That's awesome. I totally appreciate that. Well, this morning as well, one of the things we did, we started Wednesday morning with our mastermind group for our centers of influence. So these are our accountants, our attorneys, some of the realtors, some of our insurance people you've met, Tom, some of the different advisors you've met who are in our group. And what's really interesting this morning is to talk to a lot of them that the care that they're offering and what's not happening in the industry. Like right now, for you. Have you noticed how horrible customer service is right now? Try calling Wells Fargo or Macy's. You can't get an answer, or you're going to be on a hold for the next hour and 22 minutes. So what we're looking at is, how can that be different? So our hope here is that we can answer your phone very quickly, your call, your email. But that's totally different in this economy. Who is there servicing you versus service is kind of, we're big, we're Wells Fargo, and maybe I shouldn't pick on Wells Fargo, but we're somebody else and we just don't service you well. So take a look at that as well. Another thing that you'll notice is, and that we're noticing is, if you look around today, especially on Zoom calls and others, one thing you notice is haircuts, facial hair.
Hey, easy. I think he's coming at me right now.
It's funny, after 8 weeks, how many people have both grown facial hair and maybe let their hair grow and they're kind of poofing it up and different stuff. It's interesting to see these different haircuts as you go. One other thing we heard from a client this week too is the donations and drive-thrus that are not open. So you all want to donate, you got all this time to get all this stuff out of your house and you put it together, and then you go to Goodwill and you find out what? It's closed for donations. Oh my gosh. So what do? It's almost like you need to get a rental unit for storing all the stuff that you're going to eventually donate. One of our clients was 53rd out of a line of 100 cars. They only take 50, and she had to get there an hour and a half early just to get the line and get the numbers. So it's really, really interesting to see that. But they did say there's one place that's taking them right now, and that's St. Vincent de Paul. So St. Vincent de Paul is a pretty interesting one as well. One thing we found out this week as well is Finland has just closed its borders. Why is that important? I guess there'll be no one crossing the finish line. So, just as we go through. One thing as well, reading the Book of Joy from the Dalai Lama and from Desmond Tutu, is suffering is a great leveler. So it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. When suffering occurs such as this, everybody suffers. It's a great leveler. We all experience this in the same way. One thing that kind of reminds me of as well is I was on a phone call with somebody in one of our mastermind groups, and they found that up to 50 to 59% of people right now could be diagnosed as anxious or clinically depressed. So think about that. Be very careful when you're talking to people right now, because they're very sensitive and they're not feeling good about themselves. And that means some of their communication may not be so good as well. So that was interesting. When talking about that, if you think this is, a lot of people say, Thursdays are so depressing. I said, well, if you think Thursdays are depressing, just wait 2 days, because it'll be a Saturday. Again, a couple of dad jokes, which are kind of fun. You can use those on your grandkids or your kids. It's kind of fun. One thing as well is watch out for scams. Some of the keys are saying, for instance, even with us, broker names at finra.org. You're going to find different people reaching out about coronavirus. I've been getting a lot of things. Amazon, I want a $100 gift. Please respond now, and it's coming from a different phone number on a text or something. Watch out for those. There's a lot of people right now at home fishing for fraud as well. So if you get one, let us know. Forward them to us. We'll help you, and we can email those to cyberthreats@raymondjames.com. So that's some of the housekeeping to start with here. I did some of the mindsets and perspective to go with it as well, but here's a very, very important question we've been asking. And if you could participate, write it down, maybe email us. Is there anything that you thought was more important before this pandemic that you no longer think is important? So something you thought, this is so important, and now you go, it's really not that important. And the second question, is there anything that you didn't realize was as important as it really is? So we love those two questions. You may hear us ask them in your phone calls and in our meetings, if you will, in our Zoom calls. But we'd love to hear that from you. We'd love to hear your responses to those as well, because there's a lot of astounding. We did this on our call this morning. There's a lot of astounding results that come from that piece as well.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting piece. So one piece I just want to add there is what's important. And we just had Mother's Day, so thank you for all the mothers out there. You truly are the glue to the family. I think you know that. We know that as husbands and men as well. You're truly the glue. You can keep the family together, or you can really tear it apart if you look at that piece. And no matter what age we are, I just turned 40, so I have a different perspective on life all of a sudden now, right? But we're all looking for acceptance. We're all looking for love from our parents. We're all looking for significance from our parents. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing when we hear that, even as we're as old as we are. We still love to hear it, right? But equally as important is if we don't hear it. Not that we need all this, this hey, you're doing a great job, but no matter what age you are, we still love to hear, hey, by the way, you're doing a great job. Thank you for that. So just keep that in mind, because I think that's a really important piece to what we just went through for Mother's Day, and just finding out really what's important when we talk to our kids right now.
Yeah, I agree as well. So that's a great point. One thing we always look for, no matter what age we are, is acceptance from our parents. Thanks, Ken. I appreciate that. One thing as well is be careful right now, because what's occurring as well, there's a ton of fear out there, and it either makes people a victim or victor. So be very careful about this. A victim is maybe, this is all happening to me, oh my gosh, all this stuff is happening at one time. And you can really get fed up in that, and that really starts to close you down and maybe make your conversations and your own thoughts about yourself not good. Or victor, this is all being there to test me. This is all being there as an opportunity for me to rise and to do some great things, to reach out, and like some of our clients have made masks for us. Some of our clients are donating to different things. Look at what you can do out there to be the victor versus the victim. So that's a very important one that we see as well. Another one as well in this mindset is if only, then. What does that mean? Well, if only this happened, then I would be this. So here's an important part for you to take a look at. So what is it that you're looking at? If only this happened, then I would do that. So if I was to tell you that if only you had 8 weeks to be at home and be quarantined there, what would you do? Would it read books, gardening, reach out to people, do Zoom calls? If we're getting a little bit long in the tooth now of this happening, we're 6 or 7 weeks into this, how about taking that opportunity to do that now? It's a big one that we've found that if only, then. Procrastination is an interesting piece. When you look at procrastination, Dan Sullivan, one of my coaches, does a procrastination process, and you write down all the things that you're procrastinating. What you're finding with when you're procrastinating, very interestingly, you take that list and you go, if I did this, then I would be better off. By writing the list down, it lists the things that you probably should be doing and things you can start taking advantage of and doing. So that's been some of the things when it comes to mindsets for us as well. Be careful about some of the different pieces. And again, your words and hope and express gratitude and appreciation are of paramount importance. So getting through some of the mindsets pieces, that's what we wanted to talk about. Now, going into the next section we have is markets. Looking at the markets continue to recover. The markets continue to recover. They had their third best month ever. Now, when the market fell in 18 sessions or 26 days, when it fell 34%, did you expect 27 or so days later that it would be up 25% as well? I doubt it. So looking at this, it's hard to know when these things are happening, but staying true to your plan, being consistent, trying to find exactly when the bottom is, these can be, there's a lot of pieces in here that are great learning experiences as we found as well. This doesn't mean the market couldn't go lower. So that's one piece. So people ask, could it go lower than this? Could there be a second wave down? Sometimes in history, the market moves up like this, and then a second wave occurs down as people get really fearful again, and then it recovers. Remember, you've just been through this and had great behavior in it. If this occurs again as a second leg down, have that same discipline and patience, and be careful in that portion not to do something silly as well.
Yeah, that's a good piece. So we look at innovation. We look at what we're trying to do with your money and innovation and technology. From Federated Kaufman recently, they put out a great piece. I thought this was a great stat. Over the last 50 years, so since 1970, only 12% of the S&P 500 companies have actually survived all this. In 2000s, the top three companies by market capitalization were GE, ExxonMobil, and Pfizer.
Mm-hmm.
What are they today? Totally different, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of 2020's first quarter, it happened to be Microsoft, Apple, and Amazon. They all got those positions. So when you look at this piece, changing business models is key. Innovating is key. Otherwise, some companies lose their dominance if they don't want to change and don't adapt to it. You look at this. You look at Harry's. Some of you might have heard of the Dollar Shave Club. They really upended Gillette's dominance, if you will. Gillette's still a dominant company, but they've taken some market share away. And also, Gillette Stadium, Tom Brady, Patriots, maybe that whole thing is being upended right now. And Raymond James has a stadium down in Tampa Bay, the Buccaneers, and guess who just went there? Tom Brady. So maybe there's an emergence there. We'll see about that. But you look at that, less than a decade, Netflix took over from a DVD distributor to an online provider. It'll likely have to change its model again to survive as well. So there's a lot of interesting pieces. Well, here's one as well. We talk about the news. Chris has talked about this for years and years and years. Those who are watching the news this comes from the Hartford funds, by the way. From March 16th through the 20th of this year, basically in the heart of the down market that we experienced, Fox News saw ratings climb 89%. People were watching the news when the worst was happening with the stock market and the economy at that point in time. Some people have really stuck on that, though, because when we do reviews, people think that they're down more than what they are right now. It's because the news doesn't talk about the great things either that are happening. ESPN, up 11%. Who would have thought that? Sports are down. What happened? The Last Dance came out with Michael Jordan. A lot of people are watching that as well. So there's a lot of different reasons why the markets are doing right now. We're seeing on U.S. Today, J.Crew on Monday, first national retailer to file for bankruptcy. We're seeing this. Hawaii, according to USA Today, 34% unemployment. Yet the markets are stabilizing and going up. Why is that? The markets can look past that valley that a lot of us get stuck in, right? We're stuck in that valley, yet the markets can look past all that. So we find that to be a very interesting piece to what the economy is doing. Recently, in the last week, according to J.P. Morgan, I went through this last week as well, growth last week was still the dominant player. We talked about value, the two cycles in the market, growth and value. Growth still a very dominant part of your portfolio. Again, we're watching that. It's another layer to the onion, if you will. Large companies, small companies, so far this year to date, small cap value has been affected the most. We're watching that piece. So when we talk about rebalancing with you on the phone and during reviews, that's a piece that we're looking at as well. So those are a couple pieces that I found on the markets to be interesting as of late.
Another one Ken brought up to me as well is that 84% of the stocks in the S&P are down for this year. Yet the S&P is, very close to becoming near break even. It's interesting to watch when you look at that. So sometimes it's not the masses. Here's what I found. Statistics are interesting. Super high-end wealth can offset a whole lot of poor people at the very low end to make everything on average look good. Remember, if 1 foot is in a burning fire, 1 foot is in a bucket of ice, on average, I'm okay. So you got to take a look at statistics sometimes as well. We've seen that before. There's a raving bear market going on in some categories, oil and others, while the market in technologies and in biotechnology is starting to recover. Now, one thing from Transamerica earlier this week, I was on a call with some professional golfers, but more importantly before that, they had a great session, I think, on Monday, which was talking about long-tail events, Black Swan and long-tail events. If I didn't say this before, I want to say it now. There have been 6 long-tail events, according to them, and that's going to be Black Swan events going back since 1929. What they found was important is those happen, but more importantly, what happens afterward? Because, right, things in the past we learn from, things going forward we can use for inspiration. So what they found in the past, the average 10-year return after those events was 13%. The worst return was 7% per year for those 10 years. The best was 17% per 10 years. So this could be totally different. There's nothing that says that that's going to be biblical or anything, but this is what's happened in the past. So it'll probably rhyme somewhat with that as well. So these periods of time, however long it takes to get through, do lead to some pretty good times. What I also wanted to mention too is what am I hearing? This is really interesting in the news. So I just heard this as well, reached out from one of the health professionals. Are you ready for the next pandemic? First of all, are you kidding me? We aren't even finished with this one. So what are we doing? We got to be very careful with that. The media is trying to stir up the next piece of the equation as well. The next thing you're going to start to see is a lot of finger pointing and a lot of blaming. And you got to be careful with that as well, because as you go through this, you're going to start to see different camps develop. It's we versus they. Remember, we're all we. You might have different opinions, but that doesn't make somebody totally different. They got a different opinion. They're they. I no longer associate with them. Be careful with that. This can be a time when you're going to really polarize people as well. Another interesting piece I think that we found when I looked at this is looking at college or at high school seniors. I've had a lot of conversations with my clients, and I kind of looked at some of these stats. 17% of high school seniors are definitely or will most likely change their plans to attend a 4-year university or not. This is according to the Arts and Sciences Group, LLC. So you look at that, and I've had a lot of conversations. If my freshman year is going to be online, do I really want to pay that much money to go online? So interesting to see, but this is something that's maybe changing the face of education very quickly to online education or vocational education that we've seen as well. As we go into some of this as well, the planning, some different ideas on planning are very consistent. We'll be doing just normal rebalancing, bringing up cash as needed as well. But we did have one client who took advantage of some of the stuff you'll find from the CARE Act, which is you can take a one-time $100,000 distribution from either your plan or your IRA and spread the taxes over 3 years. So they had done this before knowing the CARE Act. We looked at this, had this conversation with Slot, and found out that they do qualify for that. So there's some interesting pieces. Now, you do pay the tax. You just paid over the next 3 years. For them, it was advantageous because they were retiring this year. So they had 2 years which will have much lower taxes. So they wanted to put the tax into those years versus this. So when you do look at this, there's some great pieces, but in order to qualify, you have to be let go. There's 5 different qualifications. We sent a piece out earlier this week on that as well. Take a look at that or let us know if you have any questions on some of the planning with that. So I know Ken brought it up last time. I just want to give you a real scenario where that worked.
Yeah, a couple of other pieces on planning real quick is on the call this morning with our Centers of Influence, the COI call that Chris mentioned before. We had 15 of our great partners on there, and one gentleman was talking about life insurance, and a lot of you guys ask questions to us about life insurance, whether it's yourself or your kids. And what we're noticing right now is because of interest rates being so low, the capital reserve that these insurance companies need to hold to really fund these liabilities that are out there is too high. So actually we're seeing a 30-year term insurance being almost phased out right now of an option, of a solution for life insurance planning. That's interesting. So now it's only maybe a 1 year, a 5, 10, or 15 or 20-year term, where a lot of people that take out term insurance policies are usually in their 20s and 30s. They want to cover it to retirement, if you will, which happens to be that 30-year time frame. So it's just another piece of planning that we're aware of, and that if questions come up, we'll certainly address them for you. Jumbo mortgages as well. One of our mortgage partners talked about the jumbo mortgages being phased out. You think with all the demand and the refinancing that this would be not the case, but it is right now. So those are reducing as well. One of the pieces I've heard over the last couple of weeks, it's happened 3 or 4 times on calls, is maybe a significant other, a life partner, companion that has investments elsewhere with another advisor, starting to really realize some of the value that we've provided to them over the years with the consistency of meetings, with the consistency of conversations, the rebalancing, some of the planning topics that we talk about all the time. Some people aren't getting that. You're very used to that conversation with us. We're very on top of that. We understand it very well. But some people aren't getting that, and they should be, and they need it actually right now. So we talked about the tax loss harvesting. Where we're in a personal account or a trust account, we can sell Fund A and realize some of those losses, so we can write some of those off on our taxes when we do them for next year. And then buying Fund B, so we get the investment still, we get the rebound, we get the recapture of what's happening. The Roth Conversions, we've talked many times about. Very great candidates out there for that right now, with the markets being down and their situation. Again, not getting it at all. Qualified charitable distributions, sending money to churches, sending money to the organizations you feel strongly about. Food shelters right now, it's coming out in conversations a lot with you all. You guys have, a lot of you have big hearts and want to donate properly. Allow us to help you guide that piece for you if you have questions on that. We have some creative tools and solutions that we can use for you. So those are some of the main things that I'm seeing right now, Chris.
Good. Thanks, Ken. As we go through, so Ken brings up a good point. So one thing we look at is, please use this and share it. One of the biggest things that we have, our goal is to spend time with and on you, and as such, creating programs such as this that we can constantly bring you news. These are the kind of things a lot of people aren't getting or doing. Now, I mean that as, please use this as something that you can send out to somebody of use. If you have somebody as well that needs some help, questions, feel free to let us know. It doesn't mean they have to do business with us, but a lot of people aren't getting the help they need, as people don't know quite what to do. They're doing a few random things here or there, but nothing of consequence. So take a look at having a plan. Some of my neighbors have been reaching out to me saying, hey, Chris, I need some help with this. And the first thing I start with is, let's put a plan together, because with a plan, when these kind of things happen, it makes it much easier to follow your plan. So Ken has a great point. That's what a lot of people aren't saying. But what we do is we intend to spend all our time on you and to those you introduce us to. So if you find somebody out there, we're still open to handling some of those, but we're spending all of our time on you that we can right now. So we're not out doing marketing. Please introduce us to somebody if you'd like to, but introduce this to somebody just so they get the value for it as well. Value of it, I should say, because we love putting them together. Another thing I wanted to say, somebody recently brought this up about fear. Fear has 2 faces. Fear either means F, forget everything and run, which is what some people have been doing in this correction. So the FEAR, forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. The choice is yours. It's a very important piece to look at. So when we hit fear next time, look at these options. Don't miss a chance when we're in a major crisis to reflect on how we behave or how others behave. Noting those are very, very important. One thing I've found, Dan Sullivan had said this in one of his recent quotes. He's never lost an advantage to anybody when being humble, useful, and interested. So if you can use those 3 things, be humble, be useful, and be interested right now, that is a phenomenal opportunity to make the world better. So one thing, this came from, I think, a book by Wayne Dyer. By the way, his birthday is this week, and he's a great teacher of mine, passed away several years ago. But it's a great thing about inspiration, and I'll read it to you. Hopefully it's inspiring to you. So inspiration. When you're inspired by some great purpose, some extraordinary project, all your thoughts break their bonds. Your mind transcends limitations. Your consciousness expands in every direction. And you find yourself in a new, great, and wonderful world. Dormant forces, faculties, and talents become alive, and you discover yourself to be a greater person by far than you ever dreamed of yourself. It comes from Patanjali, but Wayne Dyer introduced me to that. I would say, be inspired. Remember, the word is not outspired. Very important to let you know. Inspired comes from within. You need to help inspire others by bringing out your own light. So what's important is it's not other people aren't going to tell you you'll be inspired. Find it in yourself. You probably all recognize some of this. Recognize what it is you're meant to do, and only you will know what that is. So other people aren't going to outspire you, but they may introduce you to your own inspiration. So I know it's an interesting concept, but I want to make sure inspiration and hope follow each other very closely. And in times of this, and in America's history, in the book called Land of Hope, this is a land of hope. We will get through it. We will discover cures. We will make it through these kind of pandemics as well. So I want to make sure you know that as well. Be careful when we open the economy again. So we're a couple weeks away, and some of the things are starting to open. I've gotten some messages that some of the businesses are starting to open. But be careful about this time. You know, I think Dr. Fauci has some opinions that the next 6 weeks you should still stay at home, but the economy can't stand 6 weeks. On the other hand, what's interesting about this is we're going to bring in Dr. Gladden and a few others on how to be healthy. So if we're going to bring a 20 or 30-minute webinar, do this. Respond to us and let us know if you think that this would be helpful. We're going to bring them on because we've talked to enough of you that just like we did at our program, we're going to record or get a quick video with him, maybe 30 minutes with some question and answer, and really go through that. Maybe bring in some other great resources for you on that as well. The other one I'd like to bring in, and if this is interest to you as well, is mental health. So let's bring in a mental health expert on a few things that we could do to help us mentally during times like this. Because I noticed myself in the last few days being a little short with my daughters. Not being bad or anything, but just being short. And I realized I apologized this morning to Belle. They were being a little crazy last night when we were trying to watch a show. And we're like, oh, why was I so short with them? I was tired, and I think, but that's a vulnerability of me. So I'm very aware of it. So it doesn't happen often, but when it does for me, I want to make sure I can do things that can help you. So if the mental health aspect of it would be important to you, please let us know as well. As we're talking to you on your videos and on your Zooms and all, we'll ask you some of these questions. But if you want to reach out to our Gentian at raymondjames.com email and let us know that, or to myself directly, or to Ken directly, Peter, Ashley, Lisa, because we do share those in our morning powwow and in our evening debriefing as well. So we appreciate your time. We appreciate you watching this, be it now or recorded. It's important. But remember about us. We are serious with our guidance. We're committed to you. Extremely important to us is, while wealth management is what we do, getting people through crisis like this is who we are. That's a very important piece. So thank you on behalf of everyone here at Gentian, our entire team. And until next week, stay positive, stay safe, and be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.